Hey, everybody. This is another one of those conversational support pieces when I'm trying to have conversations with people who just are not very much like me. And this one comes from actually the business world. Erin Meyer studies international business, and I love the way that she talks about culture. So originally, the things that you're seeing on the screen right now had to do with international cultures. Looking at in this country, people tend to be more like this, and in that country, people tend to be more like that. And actually, that's a really useful way to do it. I work internationally and I use these kinds of principles all the time to remind myself about this stuff. But actually, they're good for everybody. There's considerable variation just from person to person. So these are some of the ways in which people might be thought of as culturally different. And it's best to understand just by examples. So I'll talk about these one row at a time. I do want you to know before I start, the columns are not significant. It's not like most people are on one side of the screen or the other side of the screen. The rows are continuums. They're ways in which we might be different. You could be one thing or the other or somewhere in between, but the columns themselves don't correspond to each other. They don't have meaning. First of all, let's talk about time. For some people, they think about time as linear, meaning if I say that a thing is going to start at 7 o'clock, what I mean by that is that it's going to start at 7 o'clock and we expect everybody to be present and ready at 7 o'clock. And then for other people, time is flexible. So we say we're going to start about 7, and that doesn't mean we're going to start at 7. That means sometime around 7 o'clock at the point when everybody is here and everybody has what they need and it feels like the right thing to go ahead and do is to start. So time is linear versus time is flexible. For some of us, trust is task-based. I learned how to trust somebody specifically because we have worked on a project together. And for other people, trust is relationship-based. I learned how to trust somebody because we've had tea together and I know the names of their children. For some of us, security is consensus. I feel good about the decision that we have made together because we have collectively made a decision that this is the best way to move forward. And for some of us, security is decisive leadership. I feel good about the decision because the person who is in charge is very certain that this is the right way to go. For some of us, negative feedback is direct. If I don't like this idea, I'm going to say, you know what? I don't like that idea. And for some of us, negative feedback is indirect. I don't like the idea, so I'll either be silent or maybe I'll praise a different idea, or maybe I'll ask, like, do you think that we have thought about this long enough? So that's negative feedback indirect. For some of us, we believe in say what you mean. It is the responsibility of the person talking to say exactly what they're saying. And for some of us, there's this read between the lines concept, where it's the responsibility of the listener to pay really close attention and figure out what the speaker means, even if the speaker hasn't explicitly said the thing that they're trying to say. And then the last way that we sometimes differ is with persuasion with principles versus persuasion with applications. And what that means is if I'm persuading with principles, I might say, it is incredibly important that we take this particular action because it's a matter of integrity to do so, or it's incredibly important that we take this particular action because that is the way forward that gives justice. It's principles, it's abstractions. And for some of us, we persuade with applications. It's incredibly important that we do this particular thing because of the impact that it's going to have on the actual human beings who are involved in the situation. Those are different ways that we might think about this. So I can kind of place myself on each of these continuum. I'm a very much time is linear person. If 7 o'clock means 7 o'clock. I'm super trust task based. That's the way that I think. And so much so that it took me for quite some time to understand that there even is an idea of trust being relationship based. Like that never occurred to me that sitting around having the cup of tea could be important to building trust in the relationship. And this is one of the reasons why I think this is so important. For one thing, it's really important that we recognize not to respond to cultural differences as if they are moral principles. I said that I am a time is linear person, which means that to me, 7 o'clock is 7 o'clock. And I was raised in such a way that for a long time, I believed if I said 7 o'clock and then we didn't start at 7 o'clock, that was in some way either a moral failing on my part because I didn't get it together enough to start at 7, or a moral failing on your part because you didn't show up on time and that was what we had agreed to. Whereas actually, it's just a different way of looking at time. Maybe something else happened that was more important than starting at precisely 7. That's a time is flexible viewpoint. And that's not a moral principle. That's just a cultural way that we look at things differently. And then the other piece is about understanding I can interact in ways that are going to bring more people together. So if I'm trying to have tricky conversations, I want to have an understanding of this because let's say that I have 5 people in the room and I ask, does everybody agree that this particular peace messaging slogan is the best idea? So I've got a group together to talk about election violence prevention. And 2 of the people in the room are like, yeah, that's a really good idea. And then 3 of the people in the room are kind of quiet. I need to think about the possibility that they are giving indirect negative feedback. If I am a direct negative feedback person, I might make the assumption that if they're not speaking, that means they're fine with it. But maybe they're not fine with it because maybe they're indirect negative feedback people and they need to be explicitly asked for their opinion about the thing. These are some of the reasons why understanding this is important. Limitations of this particular model. Obviously, if we're not careful, it can lead to stereotyping. All people who are from this country are that way, or all people from this background are the other way. Stereotyping is not a good idea, but having some understanding of the general cultural differences so we can be looking out for them can be super helpful. That's the cultural differences model. Next time we talk to each other, I want to give you another really cool resource. And this resource is called the Gandhi King Global Academy. I'm excited to tell you about it.